So welcome to week 6 of the term and the second week of the Sunflowers project. So in your PDF this week you will have gotten two different pictures. Okay, so the first one is this one here, which I have just found on the internet, and the second one is taken from the Shirley Trevena book. Which is here, and well, the picture is somewhere here. There it is. So I've just kind of scanned that in, and you could potentially use that as your kind of starting point. So you have a choice on the images that you use. Okay, so I'm going to have a go at doing this one. And what I've decided to do, as you can see from my drawing actually, is I've decided to really sort of crop into it and kind of really focus on the actual flowers themselves, so I'm not going to do that kind of bottom half. I've just kind of really taking it from here. In terms of colours, I'm kind of really going to try and stick to the Van Gogh Three Flowers in a Vase painting. So I'm going to try and put this kind of lovely sort of greeny blue background in, and kind of really sort of turn it more into this than that one. Obviously it might change as it goes along, but let's just see. So in terms of colours, what I'm going to do is just again stick to my three primary colours. So I'm going to have Winsor Yellow, Alizarin Crimson, Cobalt Blue, and also then bring in my Burnt Umber. So the only other thing that I'm going to say is that in terms of my blues, I might bring in the Cobalt Turquoise, simply because I need to have this kind of lovely background colour in. So I'm going to bring that in, and I'm also going to need a little bit of that French ultramarine blue just to get my super darks, when I need them. So those are my kind of colour choices for this painting. Okay, so let's get started with that first layer. So as always with the first layer, I'm going to be working very loose. I'm not going to be sort of painting individual flowers initially. I just want to get that lovely sort of colour down and sort of texture. So the other thing to kind of bear in mind is last week I asked you to practice your kind of brush strokes. So I'm going to kind of start off by kind of loosely putting in some of these brush strokes, but I'm quite aware of perhaps even the shape of some of these. So can you see how I'm working from the in, and then working my way out, because some of these brush strokes might end up kind of staying. So I want to kind of get these right. In some areas I might just kind of scrub the colour in. So really kind of, remember that kind of lesson. Remember what we did last week, and really sort of, you can already see that kind of sunflower shape beginning to appear. So I'm going to add perhaps a little bit of a kind of orangey tinge here into the middle. And just allow that really to sort of bleed. So again, you can see what I'm doing. I'm kind of taking that paint and kind of pushing it out. So that then also comes down to here. I've got some lovely kind of very, very sort of light kind of petals up here. Can actually just scribble that one in because that's not one of the most important sunflowers, but you know, it is there. Okay, so I've got my painting on a board so that I can kind of actually tilt and move that kind of paint around. So let's mix up a very sort of loose kind of greeny kind of colour. And that kind of green colour is going to sit in here somewhere. And remember, all of this is going to go very sort of dark at some point. Okay, so you can see, you know, how loose it is. I'm not kind of painting anything kind of too specifically at this stage. You know, I'm just allowing that colour to kind of just blend. So again, I'm just wetting the background a little bit so that I can start dropping in some of that blue. So I'm going to start off with that lovely cobalt turquoise. Start dropping that into some of those kind of wet areas. So in some of the areas I want it to be very, very lovely and soft, and in other areas, you know, perhaps, you know, I can kind of go in with some, you know, really interesting kind of brush marks. And let's put in the brown for the pot. Just bring in some sort of brighter kind of greens in here whilst, you know, whilst it's still wet, so it can kind of stop bleeding into the sort of background colour. Maybe add a little bit of flicking so that you know, we can kind of see some of that colour bleeding in, creating textures. Okay, so that's really my first layer of colour down, and I'm just going to leave that to dry fully. That might take up to about an hour now, because there's a lot of sort of lovely things that are sort of beginning to happen, and I don't want to disturb this kind of layer of colour with sort of putting a hairdryer on or trying to rush this process. So I'm just going to go away, have a cup of tea, and then come back and see what's happened, and then we'll do the second layer of colour. Okay, so this is now beautifully dry. And we can start thinking about the next layer of colour. So what I'm going to do, because I want to try and keep the sunflowers as kind of light as possible, I'm actually going to go straight in to those kind of slightly darker areas, or in fact, not even slightly the darker areas, but really the completely all the darker areas. So when we look at the picture, you know, what I'm doing is kind of starting here in this kind of area here and looking at all these kind of dark spots kind of around, you know, behind the sunflowers. So those are the bits that I'm going to start off first, and then go back and work into the sunflowers after I've done that. So let's get started. So I'm going to mix up a kind of dark, kind of greyish kind of colour using my brown and my blue. So in this instance I'm using burnt umber and my cobalt blue here. So I just need to get it nice and wet. Okay, and I might add a little bit of the yellow in there as well. So at this stage I really have to be sort of quite careful, really kind of like what I'm doing. So, you know, I'm very sort of carefully painting around all these kind of leaves, all the petals that I can see. Okay, so now that I've got the kind of bare bones of it in, I can kind of carry that up and through, and then here, like this area here, is where the kind of darker shadow petals of this flower is kind of sitting behind there. So I'm gonna kind of be quite careful about my sort of colour mixing here at this point. Okay, it does kind of something like that, and then in here it kind of goes quite yellow. So I'm taking maybe more of a sort of yellowy kind of brown colour. Just going to kind of allow that to sort of mix in here a little bit. And then really the colour of the pot and what's happening here is sort of so similar that I'm actually going to sort of put that in next as well. So I'm kind of mixing a little bit of the burnt umber, the alizarin together, and maybe a touch of the blue in there as well. Might even kind of go towards more of a sort of purple kind of colour. So what I would like really is for these two colours to merge in here. And just, you know, really interesting marks is what I'm kind of looking for here. Okay, so then let's kind of do this background here, because it's almost like I'm being sort of led that way, because I don't want this to dry as a hard edge, you know, I just want to sort of carry that forward. So I'm gonna now start kind of putting that lovely kind of aqua blue kind of colour, you know, the colour that is from the Van Gogh painting. But at this end of the painting, it needs to be a little bit darker. So I'm just kind of you know, going fairly dark. So I'm kind of almost using the cobalt blue and also the cobalt turquoise together, and then also allowing the allowing those colours to merge. I think it's quite a nice aspect of that painting. So let's take that darker here. That's better. I'm just going to sort of reinstate that kind of darker so some of the ones that are a little bit darker, I'm just kind of putting those in to throw some of the other ones forward. So So what I'm kind of trying to build up is some petals in front, some are behind, and just kind of creating a little bit of kind of movement in there. So I'm going to kind of carry on painting and stop doing so much talking, and you can just kind of watch and see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for now and just let that dry off, and we'll come back and have a look at the last layer of colour. Okay, so this is now nice and dry, and I can focus on doing the last little bits in terms of sort of just bringing few kind of bits of the painting out. So it doesn't need a lot of work, but it does still need a few touches here and there. Okay, so I've got my picture here as reference, and really what I'm looking at is kind of just these little tiny bits, maybe going darker in here and resolving this a little bit better, and also then figuring out what I'm going to do here with this leaf as well, because it's just slightly lost. So right, so let's get started with that. So I'm going to start again in that middle section and kind of work my way back out again. Okay, so I think I'm done with this. I'm going to leave it there, and I kind of look forward to seeing what you get up to with this project. So remember, you can use Brusho to do your final one. You can use pencils in there. You can just do watercolor like I've done as well. So it's a really kind of open project, and you can kind of take it really as far as you want. Okay, so enjoy.